What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today I want to break down my top 5 schooling fish baits, because as we all know, September and October going into November can be a great schooling fish time of year. Those fish are really starting to chase that bait. They're really getting into those wolf packs, whether you live up north or you live down south. Right here, we're down south in North Carolina, and that's why I want to talk about this, because it's something that's going on right here, right now, and I know it's going to be affecting everybody across the country. So we're going to break all that down right now. So schooling fish can be something that is completely irritating if you're not prepared for it, because we've all been there fishing the bank, doing our thing, and all of a sudden fish start blowing up 50 yards behind us and we can't find a bait fast enough in order to try to get after them. Well, with the use of live scope, people have started to realize that you can target those fish and chase those schools around and actually get on top of them and actually make it worth your while to just sit there and wait for them, because you can figure out where the bait's at and figure out where those fish are living, and then just wait for them to come up, and then you can start casting baits at them. But you have to have a few different baits on deck to kind of rotate through in order to catch those fish and really maximize your time with those fish, because sometimes you can get on one school and wait for them to blow up, catch a couple, and when they go down you can chase them a little bit and sit there and pick off a few more. Like we got fish blowing up right here. And so the first bait that I want to talk about is going to be one that's not really a shock to anybody, and it's actually my first two. That's going to be a topwater. It's something that plays every time there's schooling fish, but you have to know when and where to use it. And I have two different ones that I like. They're both by 6th Sense. As you guys know, that's a sponsor of mine that I really, really love having. And the first one is going to be the Dogma, and the other one is going to be the Catwalk. And if you look at the differences between these two, the Dogma, we got somebody honking over here. The Dogma has a more profound lip on it, and it's a higher riding bait, so it'll sit on top of the water as opposed to sitting down in it, and it'll just spit and actually walk better, and it'll throw more water. So if it's a little more overcast, you have a little more wind, that's the bait that I'm really going to pick up, because it's going to be something that's really going to catch those fish's attention and really going to get those fish to come up and eat it. It'll also get you bigger than average bites because it's a bigger profile bait and rides higher. But a lot of times I find that they don't get that bait as good. So I really only use that when I have to, when it's more overcast, more windy, and I need something that's going to be sitting on top of the water. The other one, the 6th Sense Catwalk, is one of my personal favorite of mine. If you guys have been watching the channel, you can see it in the smallmouth video that I just posted, where I have 15 minutes of just straight insanity with schooling smallmouth. This is the bait that I'm throwing in that video, and if you haven't seen that, you need to check it out, because I catch 5 and 6 pounders every cast. So what the best thing about this bait is it's a little bit slimmer profile, and it actually, with this keel that it has going on, actually rides down in the water a little bit better. It still walks extremely good, but it just sits down in the water a little bit better, and I like to use this one when it's a little calmer out, water's cleaner, and I really think I'm fishing for pressured fish more, or I just want some more natural profile. That's what I'm going to go to, is that Catwalk. It just seems like with how this bait sits in the water, those fish actually get it a lot better because of how much in the water it is. It seems like when they come up on it, it doesn't pop out of the water as much, and they really get it. I throw both of those on 65, actually I throw them on 50-pound P-line tactical fluorocarbon, or P-line TCB braid, sorry. I throw it on an 8:1-to-1 gear ratio reel. And a big thing with topwater fishing that people don't understand is I actually like to use a cranking style rod. This is a 7-foot moderate fast medium heavy, and it just loads up on those fish better, and it kind of dummy proofs it for me. When those fish come up and eat it, I can actually let them eat it, and when I lean on them, as they come up on it, if I lean too fast, it's still going to take time because that rod has to load up. So that's something that I really, really enjoy. Those are my go-to because I can really bomb those the furthest. And I can really, when those fish come up, I can get it on them right away and hopefully get to them before they actually get that shad or that herring or the alewife, whatever they happen to be chasing. And but I can throw that one the furthest out of all of them, so I really like to have that one on deck, and that's usually my go-to. The next is going to be one that probably everybody's going to be thinking about. Is going to be a Fluke. This is a Zoom Fluke right now, and I like this one because it has a little bit more weight to it. And you can see I have an exposed hook on there, and that's for two different reasons. I like that exposed hook because if they swipe at it, I still get them. And it also, that bigger hook just gives me a little bit more weight. So when I'm working that bait, it's not skimming across the top constantly. But this is a great option because you throw it on a spinning rod. I have this on 10-pound Spin-X braid to a 10-pound leader right now. On I have a 7-1 medium heavy fast action spinning rod. But I like that heavier hook because it rides down in the water a little bit better. They swipe at it, like I said. and you can really cast this super far, get a more natural look to it. And what I really like about it is if they come up and all of a sudden they kind of calm down, I can throw this out there and just watch it sink. And you know, you watch your line, and with that TCB or that Spinx braid, that high visibility, you can watch it just toonk as those fish eat it. And so you can really kind of maximize catching a couple extra fish out of there, because you can just let it sink into that school, and sometimes you can get a couple bonus fish to come up and eat that. It's also a great option if it's really glass calm and they're chasing bait. That's going to be something that looks just super natural, and they'll come up and eat it almost every single time. It doesn't matter if you're around largemouth, spotted bass, whatever. So one of the other baits that I want to talk about is going to be a jerk bait. Right here I have a mega bass, but I also like a 6 cents provoke. Again, I'll have all of this stuff linked down below. You know, your favorite jerk bait. And what I like about this is I can target those fish after they've kind of went under the surface a little bit. And so once they've gone down, I can really just start to try to call one back up and get them in that mid-depth range. I put heavier hooks on it right now because that'll actually allow me to cast it further, give me a little bit more weight, and then it'll actually make that bait sink a little bit. And so I can work that bait faster while still keeping it at the same depth, which is something that a lot of people overlook. When they start working that bait real fast, it's not getting down to the depth that you need it to be at. And so by upgrading those hooks a little bit, putting, you know, 4s on there instead of 6s, I can get a little bit more dive depth out of there and actually keep that bait down into there. But that's just another great way, once those fish have schooled and they're, you know, they're done. You know, you see them come up, they go back down, you can throw it back in there and cover some water and get a little bit more potential bites out of it. I have this on a 6/8 arc reinforcer. I like a 6/8 because I'm a short guy, and it takes the guesswork out of it as far as not hitting the water for me. Because I'm short, I like to work it down toward the water. If I use a longer rod, a lot of times I'm hitting the water or I'm overworking my shoulder. But if you're on an area where they're really blowing up and they're really keen in on that jerkbait, I would go to a 7/1, maybe even a 7/5 or 7/6 if you can find a medium light spinning rod or a Baitcaster, because that's going to give you a longer cast ability to really reach those fish. You know, if that's something that those fish are really keying in on and that's all you can get them to eat is that jerkbait, that's 100% what I would do. Is put it on a longer rod, put it on 10, 12 pound line where you can really bomb that bait out there, those heavier hooks, and really just get on top of those fish, because that's a great way to stay on top of them and really make sure that you're getting the most out of that school. Now the last bait that I want to talk about is one that's kind of a low-key bait, and it's more of a new bait for me. That's going to be a Jackal riser bait. This is something that a lot of guys down south throw, but not a lot of northern guys do, and it's a bait that really, if you look at it, has a goofy bill on there, right? So what it does is it imitates a small bait fish. They make it in 2 sizes. This is the smallest size. And if you throw it out there, it has a heavy weight to it. It sinks, but all you do is you reel it, and that bait will just sit there and skim across the top and look like a small bait fish trying to get away. And so that's a great option if your bait is super small. You know, those fish are really finicky, because again, you can put that on that same spinning combo and really bomb that sucker because it's weighted internally. You can really get a lot of castability out there and really check some of those fish way out there. But that's a great option when those fish are being really finicky, because like I said, it just hunts. It doesn't have any rattles in it. It's super silent, and with that bill, it just skims on the water. Now another thing that I want to talk about is making sure that your baits are staying up near the surface and almost making that splash, because you want to make it look like an erratic bait fish, and you really want to make it look like it's trying to get away. Because what happens, and why fish school, is they push the bait up to the surface because it's a ceiling and it's like a wall. It's almost like why fish push bait against a bluff wall. It's the same thing, because those bait fish can't go anywhere. So once they get up to that surface, they have nowhere else to go, and so those bass can just sit there and keep those bait up on the surface and really target them and really start to, you know, take as much advantage of them as they can. And so that's something that you have to think about, is making sure your bait fish or your bait is skipping across the water and really trying to make that erratic look to it. So if you want to see kind of how I use that topwater bait and really get the long castability out of it, go ahead and check this video I'm going to have linked up here, where I catch 15 minutes of just straight big smallmouth, and you can watch how I'm working that bait, how I'm leaning on those fish, and see kind of how I go about setting up and positioning on them. I don't really break it down, but you get to see raw footage of me catching a ton of fish, which is never a bad thing. So that's going to be something you guys are going to want to check out. Also, smash that subscribe button to follow with the content that I'm going to have coming out, because it's going to be a big year. We're going to be making a lot of videos, really trying to inform you guys on what I've been learning on the road. But God bless you guys. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.